What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up, Crypto Warriors, it's Ultra Crypto back at it again. Today is Friday, May 15, 2020. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Already they have raised up a moneyed aristocracy that has set the government at defiance. The issuing power of money should be taken away from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Thomas Jefferson. Let's get into it. This blog is coming from Exodus. Exodus is a desktop wallet, if you're not familiar, where you're able to manage your crypto assets. And they have a variety of crypto assets, and you're able to swap between assets as well for a small fee, of course. And they allow staking to a variety of crypto assets. So Exodus, check them out if you don't have it already. Corporate socialism. Welcome to United Corporations of America. This blog was written by Sam Clemens. Remember, it's only considered as socialism when it concerns everyday people. When you're talking about providing a way for families to feed themselves, when you're talking about a way for medical bills to be paid, not having crazy ass student loans and having to repay, just an enormous amount of money to help better yourself. That's when the word socialism get thrown around. But when it comes to help, and I'm throwing up air quotes here, helping out corporations, it's not considered socialism. It's considered capitalism, which is all BS, because we know that in a true capitalist society, a lot of these so-called corporations would have just failed and been restructured, maybe even been bought out by their competitors and things of that nature. Capitalism and socialism. Corporate socialism. Here we go. Banks' actual operations, at least for the more significant concerns, are not quite that simple though. When they're talking about, when people think of banks, they think of large buildings. And I'm sorry, I should have went into the first paragraph, but when you think of banks, you think of large buildings taking up a lot of space, big office buildings, large safes, and they have this simplicity and hometown values and things of that nature, right? But it's more than that, and it's not that simple. It's fractional reserve lending, which is crazy within itself. And as of the pandemic, the term or the idea of fractional reserve banking has been wiped out, because this is a pandemic now, and you don't need to have actual reserves in the banks anymore. They could create money out of thin air. All right, derivative trading, mortgage-backed securities, leverage, the repo market, primary dealers, loan deposit ratios, like the list goes on, and that's what banking is nowadays. It's not about going into a local bank and knowing your local banker anymore. It's definitely not about that anymore. And you will not be getting a percentage on your savings every year, like an annual return, like you used to back in the day. In 2008, after the bailout, people were up in arms. They protest and they wrote books about it, made a movie about it. But in large, the populace, we took it. There was nothing to be done. And I've given this example before when I was a personal trainer at a very fancy club up on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And one of my clients was talking about, oh, this bailout needs to come because, she worked for like Goldman or one of those banks or something like that. And I was explaining, well, me as a personal trainer, if I have my own personal training business, and if my business is failing, the government isn't going to come in there and save me. So I don't think that it's fair that these banks should be getting saved. And she told me I don't know what I was talking about, because at the end of the year, basically she needed to get her bonus, which she ended up getting anyway. But we see that now in this 2020 recession or depression, maybe years later they'll finally admit that it's a depression, that it's not only banks that are getting help, but now it's everybody, from Airlines to Wendy's to Papa John's. Everybody's getting help, and even the little person, the little people is getting help too with the $1,200, a one-time payment of $1,200. All right, so for example, airline executives, in a stroke of unmatched genius, found that in addition to checked baggage, they could charge for carry-ons. And if they could charge for the air, they surely would. We saw that they, over the past 10 years, since that economic crash in 2008, 2009, since the recovery, basically, all these corporations, instead of putting money to the side or reinvesting in R&D, research and development, or paying the highest salaries to their employees, they did a lot of corporate buybacks. In the case of the airlines, not only did they do a lot of corporate buybacks to pump up their CEO salaries, they also started charging for every little thing on the airplanes. And this part is pretty funny. In the event of an emergency, masks will drop down for all those who paid for disaster mitigation service. If you failed to pay for DMS, please help your more prudent neighbor attach their mask. In this, although it's in jest, if they could charge for air, they would. That's how lame these dudes are. And I shouldn't say just dudes, but it's mostly dudes. But that's how lame these corporate types are. They try to milk everything out and make as much profit as possible. And instead of taking those profits to help fund them in dark times, they know that Big Daddy government will come in there and save them all the time. So they didn't have to put away money for a rainy day, so to speak. It just can't sit right with most folks that while they're forced out of a job, forced to stack their bills somewhere out of sight and hit the ignore button when the landlord calls, that poorly run too big to fails will be receiving hundreds of billions of dollars worth of bailout again. And that's what's happening here. We see that because they're too big to fail, we need to help them because they'll be firing their employees, which is all BS. These corporations, they had zero fiscal managing skills. They didn't know how to manage their own money. We are supposed to, as regular people, put away 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses for a rainy day. Well, these corporations didn't even do that themselves. They were too worried about pumping up their stocks to make the CEO get more pay and to help their shareholders. The Cantill Effect describes the mechanism by which those close to the source of the money benefit the most. The Federal Reserve prints trillions of dollars, which they use to bail out companies like Shake Shack and prop up the markets. The Fed is now buying junk bonds. I did a video about that the other day. It has not explicitly ruled out buying securities. That's coming next. Unprecedented is a word that's becoming the new precedent. Everything is, it's unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this before. And we will print an unlimited amount of money, which is really currency. We will print an unlimited amount of money to help keep the economic boom going. We're starting to see them buy junk bonds. If you're in debt up to your eyeballs, no bank will lend you money. In the case of these corporations, these junk bonds, these companies are failing. A bank won't lend them money, but the Federal Reserve is coming in to lend them money. This is just, I swear, we're living in a bizarre world. Financial institutions like banks, who own nearly 70% of big company stocks, benefit from rising asset prices. They also benefit as they can spend the new dollars before inflation rises. So because they're closest to the printers, they're able to buy stocks, buy real estate, buy paintings, real assets, gold, silver, Bitcoin. They could actually buy assets before the inflation sets in. So before prices start rising, they're able to get in at the bottom and buy up all these different assets. The rest of us who own only a small percentage of assets must spend our dollars as inflation increases, experience little benefit, our wages stagnate, and our rent goes up as our buying power is reduced by inflation. Self-explanatory right there. At this juncture, a point needs to be made. What the author is attempting to construct is not a tirade against capitalism or the wealthy, because if someone like a Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, or who's the damn Apple guy, Steve Jobs, quick brain fart, they were they're creators. They build things, so they should reap the rewards of building those things. So he's not saying that he's against wealthy people, or especially those that earned it. Like I said, they build things, and they should reap the rewards. And if those rewards are billions and billions of dollars, so be it. He's not talking about this is not a call to socialism or ransack mansions and redistribute the wealth through forcible means, because that's never worked. Off with their heads and go in there. Not Wall Street mansions, but the Park Avenue mansions, or not mansions, but penthouses, and drag them downstairs. This is not the Dark Knight, all right? It's not the Dark Knight Rises, with Bane, tearing up the city, or allowing criminals to tear up the city. No, that doesn't work. But at the same time, you got to allow these businesses to fail, because they're failing anyway. This is a call out of false capitalism. In a true capitalist society, firms fail and the wealthy keep or lose their riches by their own competence. So if you're smart enough to change with the tides, so to speak, or put aside some extra money or reinvest in research and development, whatever the case is, if you're competent enough to see that things don't always go up, then you're able to keep your wealth. But if you're not, and you're stupid in just buying back your own stock and not thinking about the future, in this case, then you should be allowed to fail, because that's true capitalism. This is what must end, because this is not capitalism as the founding fathers imagined it. This is corporate socialism at the expense of the individual. That's what it ultimately is, because we are the ones that's going to be paying for it. All these trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that's being printed, or dollars being printed, somebody has to pay for it. The Federal Reserve isn't giving us the currency for free. Cruise lines register their ships in Panama and other foreign countries to avoid paying American taxes. Remember that these cruise lines, they register their companies, their corporations, in foreign countries, so that way they don't have to pay our quote unquote high tax rates. But they are quick to come with their hands out begging for a bailout. A pandemic like this will hurt cruise lines. So be it. Who cares? You're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You should be able to weather the storm. Don't come to the United States government begging for handouts when you aren't even willing to pay the taxes as a United States corporation. But yet they still get it, because they know the money printers that go brrr. All right, money printer go brrr. That meme is going to last forever. To end this section, it must be mentioned that the Federal Reserve is governed by unelected officials. If the American populace is displeased with their actions, they have little recourse. Several hundred years ago, Jefferson predicted the situation we're in today. And this quote I read earlier. All right, I believe that the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by the deflation, the banks or corporations that will grow up around these banks will deprive the people of all their property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. I'm going to stop here and continue in another video. But remember that the Federal Reserve is governed by bankers. They're not elected officials. So when Jerome Powell come out and he's speaking to the American public, It's not like he was voted in to manage the Federal Reserve. All right, these are all private individuals. These are all private banks. This is, they go to the same society meetups, the same golf courses, the same whatevers, the same shindigs, the same parties, the same schools. They all know each other. All right. These CEOs, these corporate types, they all know each other. They all know the people that run the Fed. This is why corporations could have their headquarters registered in foreign countries and not pay American taxes, or taxes here in the United States. But when they need a bailout, they come running and begging, because they're going to their friends and get that money directly. That's it for today. As always, thanks for watching. Smash that like, hit that subscribe button, notification bell to get notified. If you like more deep dive videos like this, let me know. Let's talk about it in the comment section below. And like I said, I'm going to continue with the other parts of this blog in another video. It's Sergeant Crypto, and I'm out. Peace.